Hey everyone, Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Eric.
Happy New Year to you too, Justin.
I am here with Eric Weiss. Eric is an executive coach, and I hired Eric last year to help me get my startup off the ground. And so we're going to be doing this episode of the Seeking Context podcast, talking about a few things about like Eric's background and how what it's like to be a coach, what the coaching industry is like, and then what it's like to coach me specifically, and how that compares to other executives that Eric coaches at much larger companies. So just for the very kind of opening here, I'll let Eric just give a brief kind of background on your background and how you got into coaching, just for starting.
Yeah, well, thanks obviously for having me on the show. I really appreciate it, and hello everyone out there in TV, radio land. But yeah, no, I've been working with Justin now for quite a while. We actually met when you were doing your last startup through a mutual connection through Tech Host Angels, and we built a great relationship and been keeping things going. And this is the year, man. This is going to be your year that we're going to take this thing off. So I hope I'm at least as excited as you are.
Cool. Well, so I just want to start out about your background. Like, you are an executive coach and you're a fractional or a part-time CTO. But like, just kind of take me back to the start. Like, what was your background on your education and how you got your path to becoming a coach, which is probably not a career field that a lot of people start out expecting to be in when they grow up.
No, never. Certainly not. No, I mean, yeah, my background is in software development. I've been building technology my whole life since I was a kid. Started coding when I was a kid, and worked my way up, but really always leaned towards the leadership side of things. So, I was a project manager, a product manager. I got my MBA, and then really just leaned into mainly the startup world. Diving into working with local startups as a mentor and advisor, kind of had connections with some big companies. And so working through various accelerator programs and so on and so forth, I just really kind of got into the role of mentoring and advising kind of really early in my career. And, also as a leader, as a team lead, I was always that kind of servant leader or coach to my team in general. So it's really just something I've always done. And never really planned on making it my full-time job until I did enough of it and I just fell in love with it, and it just became the thing that I always wanted to do and didn't want to do the other things. One of the nice things about working for myself is I can choose where I spend my time, and this has really been the thing where I've gotten the most fulfillment and where I feel like I've been able to make the most impact working with entrepreneurs and executives like yourself and helping them build and grow their business and realize their dreams.
That's interesting. So how'd you get your first client? Like when it sounds like you were doing this, like you're an internal leader in the companies that you work for. And then you said, I'm going to do this for somebody else or for other people. How'd that happen?
Yeah, well, I've been involved in our local startup scene here for, almost like 15 years. So we have a conference and a group here in San Diego. So there's Startup San Diego Startup Week, Connect, which is now San Diego Venture Group. And so I've just always been involved in these communities. And, anytime there's an opportunity for mentor hours, it's usually a kind of a give and take. You get mentored, you're a mentee and a mentor. And I always took those opportunities, really loved them. And sort of just kept it going from there. In terms of paid clients, yeah, I mean, it started off as kind of a side business. An entrepreneur that I would meet would just say, "Hey, can I pay you to give me more of your time and give me more advice?" Mm-hmm. And so actually, I started more of an advisor than a coach in the kind of proper sense of the term. So I advised, dozens of startups over my career, but again, mostly on the technical side of things. So you mentioned fractional CTO. My role, even as an executive coach, is kind of leaning on the product side. So I help executives and companies build better products and build better teams. Kind of how I like to put it. And so it's this very holistic process of ideation and design. I'm very focused on user-centered design. So, UX and customer research, identifying problems and opportunities, and then translating that through these various stages into product. Well, obviously, at a certain point, that turns over into software development and building and growing and scaling software products that you then have to maintain and scale and so on. And it's just this big, giant cycle that goes on forever. So I started off on the technical side, even as an agile coach, helping teams just simply do better at Scrum or at agile software development.
Okay.
But then I got an epiphany that brought me towards the product side.
Yeah. And so for like our audience, probably a lot of them don't know what agile is. So what is an agile coach and what is a Scrum?
Yeah. So the most fundamental way to put it is whenever you're building something, it's always better to build it in small increments and get feedback along the way than to start with a big idea, spend months or years building it, and then putting it out there in the world, where oftentimes it falls flat. And then you end up having to scrap it and redo it or change it along the way. So agile in the software development sense is just really about building small things, putting them out there in the world, getting feedback, and then changing course along the way.
Yeah, cool. And then that kind of developed into this course that you built, right? Full cycle product development. And so did you intend to build that course? Is that a lead generator for your coaching business? How did that come about?
It came about because, one is it was what I was always doing anyway. So when I was coaching and mentoring and whatnot, I developed this methodology and this training and so on to help these entrepreneurs build new products, build new businesses. And when I was doing it very early on for very early stage founders, I was able to do it, relatively inexpensively. But then as a victim of my own success, I started getting busier and busier, and I started moving farther up kind of the market and charging more basically for my time. But I had such a great connection to and empathy for, love for that early startup community that I was looking for a way that I could provide value to them at a low cost. And the best way that I could figure out how to do that was to package everything up, record it all on video, and charge, whatever it is, a few $100 or $1,000 or so for that course, which is hands off, right? It's all online, it's all automated, but you get the same value of at least, 6 to 8 weeks of dedicated coaching with me, but it's all online. So is it a lead gen? Kind of, not really. It's more like if I can provide some value to people that are early stage and then they're successful and then they go and they raise money, and then a year or 2 years down the road, then they're going to come back to me and say, hey, your course was amazing. Now I actually want to, bring you on as a coach, and we can go from there. So yeah, sure.
It worked for me. I mean, it's a great course. And then I was like, I got to work with this guy all the time. So I don't know.
I appreciate it. You're exactly the person that I built it for. I mean, I have you and several other clients in mind that again, I just love to see that raw passion and that vision and that commitment to making a real difference and making a positive change in the world. And so that's my mission, is just to help. That's why I do what I do, is because I love to help really passionate, really smart, dedicated people make impact in the world and make a positive benefit in people's lives. And I found that the best way I can do that is not going off and building my own thing, but to actually help many others, because then I'm able to leverage, the passion of dozens of different entrepreneurs as opposed to just what I can do myself.
Mm-hmm. Did you study coaching, or are you a natural?
Both. Yeah. There's always, I'm a constant learner. My reading list is a mile long, and I crunch through books, on a weekly basis. I've taken training and whatnot, but mostly it is experience, and just the fact that when it works, it keeps working and I keep investing in it. But I also have a little bit of that I don't want to say imposter syndrome, but I'm always looking for validation. And so I'm always going out and looking at other coaching models and so on and say, am I doing something wrong here?
Mhm.
But for the most part, it's additive. It's not that, oh, whoops, I made a mistake. It's, oh, wow, that's interesting. I can put that in my tool belt and use that under, new scenarios. Cause I'm always facing new challenges as well with my coaching clients. So
Yeah, really interesting. Do you have a coach of your own?
I have, and I'm actually in the market for one right now. So so I've had coaches in the past, but as I kind of change and progress, my needs for coaches changes as well. But I absolutely believe that everyone should have a coach, but one that is the right fit for you. So I actually am, to be transparent, I'm in this process now where I have a specific goal in mind for what I want to do with my coaching practice. And I'm now looking for a coach that fits certain criteria that's going to help me, get to where I need to go.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess I have a sense because you've been coaching me, but what does a coach do?
Good question. Good question, actually. And it's one that I am constantly asking myself because it's a lot of things and it's different things for different clients. I have to be flexible and mold my practice to what the client's needs are. And also too is, coming from a consulting background and an advising background, it's always been my nature to advise, which means to give the answer. Why do you pay? You pay me to be the smart guy with all the answers to tell you what to do. And then you just go off and do it. Well, that's not what a coach does. A coach is really there to help you come to the conclusion and help you take ownership of your challenges and then hold you accountable. So it's not my job to have the answers anymore. It's my job to help you come to the right answer, along your own path. But then I'm there really to support you and keep you accountable along the way. So I like to use the personal trainer, the personal fitness coach analogy a lot when I'm talking with new clients. You can go to a gym and hire a personal trainer that is going to sit there and tell you how to do your form better on your bicep curls, right? That's what an advisor does. They look at you and they say, you should do this, keep your elbows in tight, slow down, going down, that kind of thing. That's what an advisor does. But a coach is somebody who's going to say, well, what do you want to accomplish in life? Do you want, how many pounds do you want to lose? Or, how fast do you want to run a mile? Or do you want to finish an Ironman, a triathlon on this day? Okay. Well, in order to get there, what do we have to do in terms of your diet, your exercise, your sleep, your personal, your mental health, your mental state, and so on? And then how do we break that down into a routine and a discipline in order to get you there? And then track it and hold you accountable and support you along the way so that if you fall off, that I bring you back on again. But ultimately, a coach is there to help you get to your ultimate goal in life, as opposed to simply giving you the answers that you want to hear.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. There's, in my experience, well, I guess just for context for people, like you and I meet once a week for an hour. And that's kind of your minimum, right? Like you will not go less than once a week for an hour.
Absolutely. Yeah. And any less than that, you just lose context and we can't get into it enough. So things kind of fall off and even going, above and beyond that, it doesn't take much more than that. Once a week check-in, and there's time that's spent in doing research or other things kind of around it. But in terms of those touch points, yeah, it's we meet once a week. We review your goals. We process any issues or challenges that you may have, and we just help you kind of zoom out and look at the big picture and say, okay, when we were clear-headed and deciding where we wanted to go, and then we zoomed into the fray, are we still going in the direction that we set out to go? So.
Right. And so how do you contrast a coach from a therapist or a counselor? Because even in just the last few months that we've worked together, the challenges that I'm dealing with in my personal life, they bleed over into your impact your professional development. And so some of what we've been doing is psychoanalysis and things like that. How do you compare what you do to a psychotherapist?
Yeah, yeah. I always disclaim it. You hear me say it. I'm like, okay, I'm not a therapist, but, um, the line is fuzzy, right? I mean, as part of a coach, it is part of my role to help you process your issues and help you with motivation, and if there's any challenge, emotional distress or challenges around depression. I kind of know where I'm comfortable and where I'm not, and I will be the first one to say, hey, this is something I'm not qualified to talk about. You should go talk to a therapist about it. So there's a little bit of overlap. Some coaches actually lean much more into this. There are therapists or psychologists who are executive coaches. It's what they do, and so they really focus on that kind of human transformation side of things, which is less what I do. I'm much more of a kind of a pragmatic, again, product and business focused executive coach. So I can dabble in those areas and whatnot, but again, my approach is much more focused on goal based accountability and bringing just a lot of context and experience and connections and resources and so on, specifically in the world of building technology businesses.
Yeah, cool. Do Who needs a coach?
Oh, everybody.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, gosh, you know, the whole idea is like when we're all going through life alone, you get stuck in your own head. You get very myopic. I think a lot of the problems kind of going on in the world is that, we all live in bubbles and echo chambers. We selectively hear voices that reinforce the beliefs that we already have. We fly blind in a lot of cases. There's nobody there to hold us accountable, to help us zoom out. I mean, gosh, we all need a coach, and there's different kinds of coaches for different purposes and different people. Some of the most successful entrepreneurs or executives that I work with, they have multiple coaches, right? So I'm just one facet of what they do on the product side. They will have a therapist or a psychotherapy based executive coach, fitness coaches, life coaches, business coaches. I mean, you name it. Yeah, there's a whole gamut of different styles of coaching. But let's say this: there's the model of coach where you're paying somebody a retainer and you're meeting on a weekly basis. But everybody should have somebody in their life that they can open up to, speak freely, and again, will challenge them directly and hold them accountable to accomplishing what they want in life.
Yeah. So, and I guess, so there are, like, for people that aren't an executive, if you're, early career, you're just starting out, you think those people could benefit. And there are, I did not know about this industry existing, even when I got out of business school. And I was, 20 years, 15 years into my professional career at that point. So I guess you're saying, yes, there are coaches for people at different phases of their career.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, again, there's these different terms that we use. There's coach, there's mentor, there's advisor. And, they're all great. And you need all of them. You need somebody that has been where you are going and can simply, point out the pitfalls and guide you along the way. There are people that have specific expertise that you're looking for, that can give you those advice, that advice or those consulting type answers that you need. And there's somebody who's there that is really to help you accomplish your goals. So we all should be looking for help, basically, in any way that we can find it, whether it's for free or for paid. Obviously, if you pay somebody, you do get what you pay for. So you're going to get that long-term commitment. You're going to get that long-term context. Whereas, somebody who's doing it for free might do it occasionally or in spurts. And it's valuable where you can get it. But obviously, the coaching business is what it is, because there's value and there's a huge return on investment if you find, the right person.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that, because, I've struggled with, like, justifying the expense of a coach, especially at such an early stage of my business. And we talked about in our most recent coaching session about, like, you kind of have a structure for how to value the coach that you might hire. And so how do you frame that for your clients?
Yeah. So I always say, let's not talk about an expense. Let's talk about an investment, right? So what is the opportunity that you're going after in your business or in your life? And how much is it worth it to you to accomplish that goal? And so, as a coach, I'm obviously not the one doing the work for you, but you're making an investment to increase the chances of success. That's really what a coach does. If done well, a coach will increase your chances of success by keeping you organized, giving you perspective, holding you accountable, and so on. Keeping the eyes on the prize. So the way I like to look at it is I say, well, what is the opportunity that you're looking for to grow your business, whether in terms of revenue or fundraising? And then I always shoot for a 10x return on investment. So if I can justify or help you grow your business 10 times what my fee is, then we're all happy. And in reality, it's much more than 10x. I mean, in the world of technology, especially, there's huge numbers that are accessible, and so I'm very easily able to justify the expense. But flipping it in terms of you are making an investment in yourself, and you're paying that money with the expectation of a 10x plus return on investment in your business. So just that bit of a paradigm shift is typically all it takes to consider it, and then say, all right, well, now I've got this money to invest. What's the best investment vehicle? Is it Eric, or is it one of the other myriad coaches that are out there? And then we get to the real conversation, which is, are we a good match? And that's the conversation that I like to have.
Right.
But I'd like to turn it around to you too. I'd love to hear, and I'm sure others as well, is like you said, early stage, cash is tight. What made you feel like this was a good investment?
I looked back and I looked at the money I spent on an MBA at Harvard. A lot. And fortunately, half of mine, because the new GI Bill was created the second year I was there, so I didn't have to pay for that second year. But even the first year, exorbitant. And your annual cost is far below that. And you taught me, sorry, Harvard, but like 10 times as much about what I actually need to do to build a technology startup. Because I'm doing it right now, and you know everybody in San Diego, and you also have built other companies, and you also know everything that's going on right now. Like my MBA is and the startup courses at the MBA are now 10 years old, right? Mm-hmm. So what's going on in the venture capital world right now? What's going on in the technology world right now? Just you recommended using the Dovetail, like to record my interviews, and that was valuable. I'd never heard of Dovetail. I wouldn't have gone out looking for something like that. So at the start, I thought, I'm going to try this for a few months and just see. And then I've thought about okay, I'm going to continue doing this over the long term because it is far more valuable than the gigantic education expenses that I have outlaid in the past. And I always think that an investment in education is worth it. Mm-hmm. So I compared it that way. And I like the view of let's see how much I can get out of it, but that's not how I viewed it at the start.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate the candor, and obviously with you specifically, but with any early stage founder, I know at those early stages how every dollar is worth so much, and how ruthlessly you have to prioritize each and every dollar that you spend. So I'm obviously honored and humbled that you do see the investment is worth it. And obviously I'm definitely here for you. And as we kind of talked about, earlier today, we've got some big goals with some real significant dollar figures on it. And we're going to get to that 10x. Actually, we talked about a 20x ROI. And we're going to get after it. So it's going to be a big year.
Yeah. The other thing I think you can view it as you're like a fractional employee of my company almost. Mm-hmm. Right. And I feel like you've helped make me 2 or 3 times more productive than I was. 6 months ago. And so if one more of me is grossly expensive, I could never afford me, if you will. And so that's also valuable. So it's just thinking of you as like a fractional employee, even though what you're doing is you're increasing my own impact and productivity. That's another way that I've thought about it.
Yeah. Efficiency and leverage is actually a big aspect of what I focus on as a coach. Is not only for you, but as you build a team, the whole team is how do you make your team more efficient by clearing roadblocks and improving communication, improving clarity of vision, direction, and so on. And then how do you leverage? And that has a lot to do with delegation, especially with executives. Delegation is by far the biggest challenge that most executives face. And so helping them delegate allows them to leverage. They leverage the skills and the energy and the effort of other people to get work done. And once you get good at leveraging, now you can scale, because now you can leverage many, many, many people, and then they create more productivity and growth and so on. So that's the name of the game. So.
Right. Okay. So if you and I have convinced these people watching, where do they go to find one? How do you find a coach?
Oh, that's a good question. That is a really good question. It does depend on the style of coach. I mean, I think the problem is not where do you go to find a coach. It's how do you, once you open yourself up to it, how do you clear away the noise? Because there are thousands of people out there that call themselves coaches. And there's a lot of noise out there, and there's a lot of people that, I don't want to say they're necessarily con men or women, but let's just say there are these gurus and these motivational type folks that will gladly, or let's just say their message is this: look at me, I'm rich. If you pay me, I'll teach you how to be rich. But they became rich by taking your money. Right? There's a lot of people out there, the motivational speakers of the world, and not to say that they don't provide any value, but you definitely got to be wary of that kind of person. So how do you find a real legitimate coach? The way I do business, and obviously the best way is always through referrals, right? So anyone that's vouched for is probably the number one place. And then, reaching out to people in your network. I guarantee you, actually, this is an interesting stigma, or something that even myself, I'm learning. More people have coaches than you realize. People don't like to talk about it, that they have a coach. Really? And so I'm discovering all the time that people that I know, colleagues of mine, have coaches, but they've never mentioned it, And so even just asking your friends and your colleagues, especially ones that are more successful than you, or are where you want to be, ask them, who's your coach, or do you have a coach, or have you had a coach? And you'll find some good recommendations, hopefully. And then obviously you can find me on LinkedIn or at fullcycleproduct.com. I put content out there, and I'm always trying to sort of coach and teach the world. So, if people connect with me on LinkedIn or through my website, they can meet me or just consume my content or whatever it is. And hopefully there's some value there. But so that's it. You get connected to a person. You get somebody that can vouch for it, whether it's somebody hopefully, or someone in your network, or testimonials. And there isn't a really cool way to do it.
Coaching.com doesn't exist for like a network.
Well, let me actually plug a partner of mine. So there's an organization called Prismatico, which I won't spell, but maybe we can throw it up in the notes somewhere. But they are an executive coach matchmaking program service, and they feed me business, and they're fantastic. Cool. So you obviously can come right to me, but if you're looking for something, because again, they've got the whole gamut of executive coaches that are maybe psychotherapists or so on and so forth. So that if you're looking for an executive coach, but one with maybe a different pedigree, Prismatico is a great service.
Cool. I've never heard of that. That's really interesting. Cool. Well, I was going to transition a little bit into coaching me. So I guess you and I met through Joe Gatto in San Diego. And do you remember advising me and Chloe on our last startup? That was
absolutely. How could I forget? Yeah.
And then I came to you I found about full cycle product development, and I took your course, but I took it as like on the coaching engagement.
Mm-hmm.
I am a very small nascent company because I'm a company at this stage. How do I compare to your other clients? What is like? Can you just describe your client mix before we talk about like your relationship with me?
Well, yeah. So you're definitely not my typical client. Typically I work with Series A and beyond, funded companies, because again, to justify my expense, there needs to be leverage. There needs to be the opportunity to generate lots and lots of money, where execution really matters. And so so usually my clients are executives, basically on the product side. So either a head of product or a head of technology, whether it's a CTO or a VP level, but companies that are Series A and beyond. So they're generating at least a few million a year in revenue. But I still do work with early stage founders, and what really connected me with you, and why I work with you, frankly, is the mission, is the cause. You are unique. I would say, well, let's say uniquely, because you're one in a million. Let's say the kind of entrepreneur that is all in for making a difference and really helping people in life. So the last business that you started, Upgrade Stay, was a problem that I never knew existed. And it was one, maybe I'll let you talk about it for a minute, but it was one where I felt you were providing people with a sense of dignity and safety for a group of people who frankly have our lives in their hands every day, as we travel. And so that was something, when I heard, I didn't, a problem I never knew existed, but once I realized, I was like, this shouldn't happen. We need to kill this problem. So that's why I was supporting. So maybe, I don't know, maybe you want to.
Upgrade Stay was about providing better lodging for aviation professionals, pilots and flight attendants, because many of them commute from all the way across the country. And when they commute to their home base, the airline doesn't give them lodging in what's considered their home city, even though they don't live there. So they all live in these crash pads where 10 pilots or 15 flight attendants will rent an apartment together, and it's not very good living conditions. And we wanted to do some really cool innovation about essentially kind of fractional hotels and giving you fixed rate hotels. And it was a super fun concept, and it was designed for improving the lives of this very niche group of people. And COVID-19, among its other consequences, killed that business because just aviation kind of stopped in March, and there wasn't a path forward.
Unfortunate. And we'll come back one day, but just the imagine, everyone out there, imagine this: your pilot and your flight attendants, when you get on a flight, just woke up sleeping in a slum or a hostel in a bunk bed or on a sleeping pad with 10 other people. They didn't get a good night's sleep. They were people they didn't know. They weren't secure. They weren't safe. A lot of times, I guess it was just rooms being rented out from random people. I just, the fact, if there's anything that I want, I want my flight staff to have a good night's sleep, to wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take us all safely to our destination. And so when I heard about that, obviously I was like, oh my gosh, this is a problem that just has to be solved. And so I was obviously happy and eager to support you with that. And obviously it's unfortunate that, this global black swan event, torpedoed it, but that problem is still there. So as soon as we start traveling again, that problem is still there. There are still going to be pilots and flight attendants sleeping in bunk beds 10 deep in an apartment.
So weird.
Yeah, I can't believe it. But so then, took a brief moment, and then came back ready to start, rise from the ashes. And
I needed a job.
You needed a cause, is what you needed.
Yeah, you're right.
What is it? You were talking about teachers. You're talking about cooking. You're talking about this. And then we landed on this faith niche. But that was part of our early work together. is to say, yeah, there's this general platform that can service all these other use cases, but let's start with who are the real people that you care most about making a difference in their lives, improving their lives. And after going through and doing some of that research, you landed on faith communities and community in general as something that was so needed in the time of COVID, is that we were already disconnected, and we see where a disconnection and a loss of community is getting us as a society, and then making it even worse through COVID. And then obviously by not being able to stay afloat during these times is going to make it even harder after the fact. So we're just accelerating, this disintegration of society. So again, it's a very noble cause, and I'm happy to support you.
Oh, thanks. I'm curious, when we started working together, I was not focused on communities of faith. I just had designed some software concepts that could be used for cooking videos or training videos. And you, as we started taking, you started kind of advising me on like, hey, let's test this. Let's talk to a bunch of people. And it was really kind of almost an offhand comment from my friend Leanne that said, hey, this could be used in early education for Judaism. And then I started following that thread, and that led to a completely different business than I thought I was planning to build, in say June. Is that common in your in your full cycle product development experience? Mm-hmm. Does that frequently, because I really did not anticipate where I am on January 1st compared to 6 months ago?
It is precisely the essence of the course, of the methodology, of everything. It's exactly what I'm trying to get across in everything that I do. So, they say the path to success is never linear, right? It's always, every entrepreneur success story I've ever seen, there's always this slide that's like, I thought success was going to look like this. And then they show the spaghetti and say it really looked like that. Everyone pivots. It's just the name of the game. You get to a certain point and something gets in your way where you're like, all right, well, I can't keep going down this way. I need to pivot and I need to go a different direction. Maybe I get back to where I wanted to go, but for now I need to go that way. And so my philosophy is you want to pivot as early as possible, because that's when it's the least expensive to do so, right? Mm-hmm. So imagine if you had just gone down this path and just said, okay, I want to build this product and I'm going to build it for cooking classes. And you go and you raise money and you hire a staff and you build a product, you invest all this capital, and then you put it out there in the market and nobody wants it because you never asked anybody. You didn't care. You didn't see what people really cared about or what problems they really had. All that time and all that money was completely wasted. And then if you're lucky, you might say, oh, well, actually, there's this thing over here that I need to go after. But now instead, so if there's I'm going to try to draw a diagram here. You're starting at a certain point. The real opportunity is over here. You go off in this direction and then realize you have to pivot and go back in that direction. Why not just go straight in that direction, or at least make a bunch of course corrections so that you eventually converge to where you needed to be without going off into left field? That's the essence of agile development, the essence of user-centered design. It's exactly why I built the course, why I wrote the book, why I do coaching. This is it. Within 2 weeks, we were able to pivot towards the direction and the cause that you really wanted to go after, or that was really the urgent, critical, pressing need. Whereas if you hadn't hired me, I don't know when you may have, or if you would have ever realized it, but I can guarantee that you would have gone much further down that other path and spent a lot more time and money going after the wrong thing before finally realizing, that this was the way you wanted to go. So this is it. This is the proof in the pudding right here.
Yeah, and it's hard too, because I like designing stuff, and then when you make something, you're like, let's build this thing, and I want real people to use it, but you get scared of I don't want to show it to them yet because it's not fully baked. And you I think your approach is you have to show that before you bake it.
Yes, exactly.
I want this recipe.
Absolutely, right? I mean, it's just sort of the, if I don't know, if you ask somebody do you want, apple pie or chocolate cake? And they tell you, oh, I'm allergic to chocolate. right? You want to know that before you start baking the cake. Right. And so this is actually a really common, very, very common pitfall or trope for entrepreneurs is it's almost I don't want to say maybe a bit of is this the right audience? A messiah complex. It's the idea that the entrepreneur has the idea in their brain and they're like, this is going to change the world, but nobody's going to get it. Right. I don't want to share it with people because they don't get it. Or if you show it to people and they say, I don't get it, say, well, that's your problem. Right. You just don't get it because you're not smart enough or savvy enough or enough of a visionary. I'm the one with the idea and I'm going to go off and build it and spend all this money and time and resources for them to say, yeah, I don't get it and I'm not paying for it, which is what usually ends up happening. So my philosophy around user-centered design is be humble, come down and say, I am here because I care about a group of people. I want to make a difference in their lives. You tell me, don't tell me what you need. Don't tell me what product you want. Tell me about your problems. And then let's collaborate on building a solution together. And then it's that iteration that I'm going to sketch something out. Hey, would this solve your problem? Okay, how about this design? How about this prototype? How about this early rough set of features, this beta test? Okay, now we've got something in the market. What about this feature? What about this feature? And you're constantly getting that feedback and staying as close as possible to your customers. And you're ultimately building the product that they need and the solution that they're looking for, and taking your ego out of the game, which is the hardest problem for executives and entrepreneurs, and one that gives me a lot of stress and heartache throughout my life.
Yeah, ego is a tough one. I'm curious. Hold on, I have a question here. Well, I lost that question. You're preparing for your coaching sessions. You got all these different people throughout the week.
Mm-hmm.
How do you manage that? Like, do you have an agenda that's different for me compared to like the agenda for your call 2 hours later?
I try to keep the basic structure the same. The context changes, but I have a flow that I've practiced and that I try to stick to. It goes off the rails, but at the end of the day, first and foremost, coaching and the sessions, it's about building a relationship, building trust, and then having deep conversations about the things that matter most. And so it doesn't take me long to pick up where we left off and remember, what did we discuss last time? Obviously, it helps to take notes and to write down an agenda ahead of time. But again, that coupled with a routine structure for the engagement makes it manageable.
Yeah. One of the interesting things in our coaching, relationship, and just in my experience with you, is you started off early on, or at least through the process, making me really focus on my personal life and making sure that, like, I think you said something like, hey, the foundation of your life is your marriage, and or your personal and your family, really.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you, I guess I just wanted you to talk about that in general for the audience, like, because you are coaching people for their business goals,
Mm-hmm.
but you definitely have a philosophy that your personal life is extremely important and at times needs to be the priority, that pushes out your work goals. So I'm just curious about your philosophy on that.
Your personal life, kind of as you call it, or let's just say the life outside of work, is really, it's not only the foundation, it is the reason for doing anything that we do. Why do we work? Because we want to derive meaning, but because we also want to derive, success and so on to support the life that we want to live and accomplish the things that we want to accomplish in life. So if all you do is work and all you do is focus on your business and you let your health, your physical, mental health suffer, your relationships suffer, your marriage, family suffer, it's all going to come crumbling down. And what I've seen time and time again when a business that is doing well tanks, it tends to happen when there is trauma, essentially, or upheaval in the lives of the leaders, of the people that are running it. Where they take their eye off the ball, or they get pulled away, or they've just ignored their personal life for so long, that the rug gets pulled out from under them. And so I am a firm believer that you have to invest in yourself first. Put your oxygen mask on before helping others. But also too is I truly believe that your business is in service to you, as well as the people that you want to help. But you're not in service to the business. The business should be in service to you. So if the business is not helping you live the life that you want to live and accomplish the things you want to accomplish, then get out of that business.
Right. I'm also curious, through the last 3 months have been tough for me personally, because I'm going through divorce, and you have kind of been there along the way. And, you really helped me say, well, if you were kind of agnostic, as I recall, if a divorce is going to happen, then make sure you devote enough attention to making sure that it happens in a way that doesn't completely disrupt your life, and you can't, and don't stick your head in the sand. That's kind of, and really lean into it. And I really try to take that to heart. Have you had a lot of other clients that have had, major life changing events during the course of your coaching, the arc of your coaching relationship with them?
Without a doubt. I mean, the longer I work with somebody, the more likely something like that is going to happen. A divorce, a death, or a positive life change, or maybe a kid going off to college, something like that. But there are these life moments where we don't want to let them go by, right? We don't want to ignore them, because either A, they might be something great there that we're missing, or B, it's going to fester and it's going to come back to bite us. So in your case, I don't hold an opinion on whether or not people should be in a certain relationship. That's for couples counseling. But yeah, my advice to you is simply, hey, you're starting a new business. It also looks like you could be going down the path of divorce. If that is the way it's going to go, like you said, focus on that, lean into that. The business can wait. You can focus on the business when the time is right. But if you let this thing just fester, it's going to take you out. And so even as your sort of business coach in that sense, I said, well, the best way to help you be successful in your business is to help you deal with this crisis at home, which you've done, incredibly well. And obviously I commend you for that. It's not done, but as I mentioned to you, I think earlier today, your peace and stoicism almost going through this process has actually has had me confused over some of our sessions, just making sure, hey, are you really okay? Are you good, man? But what you shared with me earlier, maybe you can talk to it a bit, that actually the work you're doing with Reach is providing you with that level of being centered and so on. And so that's, again, why I'm here to support you, because it's helping you in addition to helping other people.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to share. I mean, what Eric and I talked about earlier today, Eric asked me for a set of goals for the year and a vision statement, and looking back on the last year and where I had grown the most. And I think the statement you're referring to is that my look back statement on where I had grown in 2020 was my own spiritual growth. And that in the process of interviewing dozens of people about their own personal faith, I found that I kind of discovered my own through their sort of witnessing to me, I guess. And it has brought me to a place where the anxiety that I used to feel about money and life and what my future might bring has kind of faded away. And because of the convictions that I have discovered, it allows me to be grounded and centered and not unmoored by what seemed like the collapse of our society, um, and was the collapse of my last business, and unfortunately the collapse of my marriage. But even there, it's like my relationship with Matthew, which my husband, in a way, is improving, even though we are divorcing our financial lives and our, living together. Our relationship is not ending, and I think that is largely due to the impact of my own personal spiritual growth. And that was a definite unexpected experience for 2020 for me. I was kind of, your vision statement and your reflection exercise was helpful in, kind of making me face that. And interesting that that it hit you as well. I think I've been confusing you because I wasn't freaking out over the collapse of my entire world in 6 different ways over the last 6 months.
It was confusing. I didn't understand how you could be so calm in the face of all this adversity. And again, I kept checking in. Like, are you sure? Are you not? Like, because what I was feeling was that you weren't opening up to me, that you weren't telling me the truth, really, about how you were feeling. Even though you come across as calm and so on and so forth, I just couldn't believe that you were so calm. But that passage that you wrote, I think I said it hit me like a lightning bolt, where everything just came clear. I said, wow, the journey that you've been going on this year in researching this product, this business, this community, a byproduct of that is finding the spirituality yourself, which has given you the benefit that it's intended to, and it's helped you through this, which is a phenomenal achievement. Aside from anything, forget about making money, forget about building a business. If the only thing we succeed throughout this whole process is for you to find that peace and that centering and that connection, to the one, then it'll be a success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One more question.
Mm-hmm.
Do people graduate from coaching? I've seen this in therapy. M. Scott Peck says, like, you graduate from psychotherapy when you are able to be a therapist yourself to everyone. I'm curious, like, do your clients sometimes graduate or go on and you're like, hey, I'm not the right coach for you anymore?
Funny you say that, because every therapist I've ever had they have therapists. Mm-hmm. So I don't agree with that statement. I think therapists have therapists, coaches have coaches. No, I don't believe that we ever graduate from needing support, needing that third party, that trusted advisor, or that trusted person, that can listen to and guide us along. I think that you may outgrow or drift away from individual coaches. That hey, what you need in life at this stage may be different, and you might need somebody for one thing, and then you might need me for another stage, and someone else for another stage. So that in that sense, I think you could certainly graduate from me and decide at some point in the future that you need a coach with a different set of skills or that focuses on a different stage or type of business. But no, I mean, I think again, we all need support. And we should get it. We should go after it. So I did actually want to have one more thread around our last discussion or the last question around faith, and that was your connection to spirituality had been broken, right, for a long time, and I think it had a lot to do with organized religion and with your connection to the church or not being accepted or feeling belonging to a church, which maybe you can talk about. But what I found really insightful and enlightening here is that you've found a way to get the spiritual connection and the spiritual benefit without having to associate with, again, a particular organization which may or may not respect or welcome you. And so I'd love to hear you, talk about that.
Yeah, I think that difficulty that a lot of people have with organized religion is that their own personal experience doesn't uh, doesn't resonate, or well, we could say like individual churches' doctrines and their rigidity on doctrines, um, some of which may or may not be in accordance with Scripture, but their view of it is so rigid that it causes people of different, in my experience, with your human sexuality, um, to think that the church just isn't for me. And my just experience over the last year is that your spirituality isn't just the church, right? And there are different groups. Judaism has an approach, and Christianity has an approach, and Buddhism has an approach, and the you're kind of born. Usually, the religion that you keep for your life is the one that was handed down, and handed down religion doesn't necessarily work because the problems with just human sexuality, they're splintering the churches themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so people will leave, or they will drift away because they don't identify with the teachings or the path that the particular organized religion that they were born into that they adopt. And so what I've found is that when you talk to people of faith in various different religions, what I found this whole last year is that the grounding that you're seeing in me, you see it in these people across the board. And the other thing about my research is that all of these people that I talked to, I highly respect. And most of them are people that I know. A few of them are people that I don't know, but they are people that believe in science. They are people that are active members of their community. They are successful in their work life and their family life. And I kind of thought, maybe I'm the person that's missing something. You're like, I'm a person of the world, right? I'm a sophisticated, educated person, and I can handle things myself. And I don't need God, or I don't need religion. And I don't know that necessarily you need a particular organized religion. But when I just researched so many people and heard them tell me things that I didn't know, right? I didn't know that all of these people actually have faith. There were all of these people in my life, and I thought that they were active members of their church because that's what you do to be a good person in your community and to support it. And what I discovered was that many of them, not all, that many of them have a deep faith commitment themselves. And it's because of it's a variety of their own personal experience, their reading, or some mystic experience that happened in their life. And they're not just, following something that they're not doing it because it was handed down. They're doing it because of their own personal experience. And so what I kind of discovered was I want to be like them. That every night, anxious and upset about the world, and I want to have peace and conviction and be able to wake up every day and work hard and contribute to my family and my community. And for the people that I've talked to who have that conviction, they lead a happy life.
Yeah.
Even the ones that are sophisticated. And what I found is that mostly I didn't know it. They were not people that were out there proselytizing. They weren't people that are, Bible thumping, if you will. They just lead their lives by example. And there's what you have seen in me is my adoption of their approach, because it's way better.
And that was the thing that I really I loved about it, and wanted to kind of touch on too, is that being somebody who had been let's just say ostracized or marginalized by that faith community that you were born into, made you kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? You lost the ability to be spiritual because you associated spirituality with that experience, right? Or that you say, hey, all people who are faithful are by definition, hateful or closed-minded or whatever it may be. But through this process that you found, you've been able to separate the two. Maybe it's also by exploring very different religions too. You've been working with people of different faiths, so maybe you can kind of separate and find those commonalities of the spirituality as separate from the organization. But there's even the third component, which is the community. There's the organization, the community, and the spirituality. And I think the problem that we have is the organization that creates that doctrine, which then galvanizes a community in a certain way. But so one is, the community is great, but you got to find your community, and you found it, but you found it outside of religion, right? But then you lost the spiritual component. So now you found the spiritual component independent of the religion, and it's given you that benefit. So I think just what I was saying to you earlier, a great message and a great voice for you to have for even for this podcast going forward is you can connect to spirituality and get these benefits of being spiritual, even if you are somebody who is traditionally marginalized or haven't felt like you've belonged or resonated with a particular organized religion. And I think that's a good, strong message to have.
Well, thanks.
This is proof is in the pudding right here. I mean, this, like I said, the way that you have navigated 2020 has been certainly something to look at, something to watch for me personally, and something that I've been eager to see along the way. And again, if through this podcast, if you can help share that message and help other people who are anxious and uncomfortable and so on, don't feel they belong or don't feel connected, be that voice. I think that's that's a great mission for this podcast.
Yeah, I just think that maybe people can take a second look, and it doesn't have to be with the organization the one organization that you happened to be sort of born into.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of approaches out there. There's a lot of great authors, and there's a lot of great, you can learn from all kinds of people. And
so maybe you can help them find it, right? Maybe you can pick interesting insights or ideas or thoughts from various faiths and maybe try to help open people's minds to what else is going on out there.
Well, that's one of the things that I've got a friend, here in Kansas that who is he's considering moving to California, but he is a person of faith, but doesn't feel like he fits into any of the churches that are out here in terms of one that he would really want to attend. And so I feel like the platform where you could, try and find a community that speaks to your personal needs, whether that isn't necessarily physically located in your town, or sometimes if you're thinking of moving to somewhere, to be among people that you identify with and that you can find, community and faith and family where you'd be comfortable. If the platform that I'm building does anything close to that, I'll feel a great sense of accomplishment.
That's a great hero journey. It's in the entrepreneur world, you got to have that founder journey that is your personal awakening, discovering this, this calling and so on, and then building the business to spread it, to the world. I mean, that's a great story right there.
Well, and this interview is eye-opening to me too. I didn't know that the business that I'm building was something that you are. I thought I was just a client. I guess you probably that has an impact on you too. But it sounds like our work together has impacted you personally, and I assume that probably happens with every client. Do you learn from every client?
Absolutely. Nobody is just a client to me. I can't do it. I couldn't do my job if this was a transactional relationship, which actually is one of the challenges around advising. And I won't get too much into it, but if you're paying me to just give you an answer to a question, that's a transactional relationship. But as a coach, I really do have to care. I do have to care about you as an individual, but then also care about your cause. And so that is actually the way I select clients. Is I have to resonate with them as an individual, resonate with the mission of their company. And so I wouldn't be working with you if I didn't care.
Well, I'm glad I passed the bar, and I'm lucky to work with you as well.
Same here. Same here.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Eric. Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year, everyone else out there. Think about getting a coach. And I'll post the thing. What's the company's name that you mentioned that pairs people if they're interested?
Yeah, Prismatico is a executive coach matchmaking service, and obviously you can find me at fullcycleproduct.com and on LinkedIn, et cetera. But I'm sure we'll share some info.
All right. Thanks a lot, Eric.
Thank you so much, Justin. Have a great day.
All right. Bye.